Monument Valley 3 is a top-down puzzle game and long-awaited entry to the Monument Valley series, known for its magical presentation and cozy atmosphere. This new title is no exception, providing a compelling story, some beautiful visuals, and an incredibly immersive experience. Before continuing with this video, I highly recommend watching my reviews for the previous Monument Valley games, especially if you are new to the series, as they will give you enough context not only into the games themselves, but also of my connection to them. I really appreciate them, and in all honesty, they are my favourite puzzle games on the market, and some of my favourite indie games ever. I'm making that point clear because going into this game, I knew I was unlikely to be disappointed. If they were going to give us more of the same, I was going to be more than grateful for it. To my surprise, Monument Valley 3 has plenty of new things to offer. A new story, new visual backdrops, and some new and reimagined mechanics. While not exactly bursting with content, there is more to talk about here than there was with Monument Valley 2, for example. I'll begin with the story. Stories in this series have always had a strong emphasis on show, don't tell, but with each entry they have become sort of easier to read into. The narrative for this game is probably the easiest to understand. It also happens to be my favourite. You play as Nor, a young apprentice of the Lighthouse, a structure whose purpose is to guide ships to safe harbour, serving as a light in the dark and a beacon of safety. You and your teacher, the current keeper of the lighthouse, are tasked with keeping the light shining, but disaster ultimately strikes and the light begins to fade. Your quest is both a coming-of-age story and a mission to save the world and keep everybody safe. Watching and experiencing Nor's journey through this world and seeing them become more competent through each chapter is one of Monument Valley 3's major hallmarks. You see them at their highest and their lowest, and combining that with the series' unique presentation makes for a memorable experience. It may be blunter and more simple compared to the first game's narrative, but I found this one a lot easier to connect to, and the emotional beats hit harder here than they ever have before. A lot of it is thanks to the way it's all presented, but not solely for its visuals. Sound continues to play an important factor. There are moments that almost make it feel like you are playing a Pixar film. While the art style is far removed from them, the dreamy soundscape feels very reminiscent, and is easily one of the best aspects of not just this game, but the series as a whole. Seriously, don't sleep on these games. Every moment, every interaction has purpose. Everything you do makes a sound. There is intention in every action you make. It's pretty and comfortable, but very much driven into keeping you immersed. The atmosphere is a testament to the magic these developers have, and it's also something we are going to dive into next. Saying Monument Valley is all about the vibes isn't an entirely inaccurate statement. It does feel like a vibey game. Nothing has changed with this entry either. There's obviously a lot more to it, but if you were to play it for the vibes, you'll be more than satisfied. There is a lot that goes into generating those vibes, however. I've already talked about the audio. Everything about it is immersive. It's purposeful when it needs to be, melancholy when it wants to move you, or relaxing when it wants you to be in the zone. Those strings are not to be trifled with, because they have so much emotional power behind them. The other major component is the visual aesthetic. This is something that cements Monument Valley's identity. You can spot these games a mile away thanks to their visuals. Cutesy dioramas, or monuments as the games call them, situated in a colourful, sometimes awe-inspiring landscape. There's a definitive surrealist quality to these levels that makes them as impactful as they are. Take this one, for example, which takes place inside a massive sea creature. This kind of clever level design is what I love most about Monument Valley. The way it plays with your mind and makes you wonder how on earth something like that works. It brings a childlike joy to me because it reminds me how I felt playing games when I was younger. As I said in my review for Monument Valley 1, it looks like magic is unfolding on the screen, and it never ceases to amaze. What makes Monument Valley 3 stand out in the series is its setting. The vast majority of the game takes place on the ocean, making each level feel like a remote island in a vast watery expanse. In a way, levels feel more grandiose than they did before. There's a wider sense of scale and vulnerability to the way you play through them. You might have noticed by now that you can sail across the ocean. It's a really neat mechanic, which I will get into shortly, but it adds an extra layer of depth to the level design. Some levels have multiple islands that you need to go back and forth to, adding some complexity to their structure. It's not all ocean though, and there's plenty of variety in locations. Each chapter feels visually distinct, and that cleverness that's prevalent through levels in previous games remains a core factor here as well. There are plenty of wow moments to be had. Colour and lighting are absolutely top-notch in Monument Valley 3. They help drive the emotional impact of the story while also building the tranquil, though also sometimes intense, atmosphere. Visually, I think it's the best looking game in the series. It's everything we had before, just new and improved, and I think that statement can apply to the game as a whole. In terms of gameplay mechanics, Monument Valley 3 more or less plays the same. You click where you want to move, you solve environment-based puzzles by moving specific pieces of a level, and you try to approach challenges as technically as possible. The series never needed to have a boatload of mechanics because its entertainment factor stems from its creative design approach to levels. It is a question of how complex can they be, how crazy they look, how structurally unique they are. My opinion has always been that the series as a whole isn't overly challenging. I think, even after playing this, that the first game is the most challenging. This one has more or less the same difficulty as the second game. The only thing I will mention is that a free DLC is coming out later this year, so there is a chance that some of the puzzles in there could make this opinion change. Personally, this has never been an issue for me. I understand me saying that might raise a few eyebrows. It is a puzzle game, it's supposed to be challenging. That all depends on what you want from Monument Valley. These games are a triumph in their presentation, their atmosphere, their soundtracks, just their general vibe. That is enough for me to not care about very difficult puzzles. But if you are looking for a more challenging experience, and that is your number one priority, this will probably disappoint you, and that is completely fair. It's hard to describe what playing these games feels like to me because it's purely an emotional tether. Either way, it's something to keep in mind. That being said, there were quite a few moments that had me stop in my tracks for a bit, especially towards the end. That last chapter had me stumped more than once. You do have to approach these levels with an open mindset. Think ahead before you move. Some pathways twist to the point you are facing a completely different direction. Gravity has no meaning in Monument Valley. Alas, let's talk about the sailing. Totem is back once again, although this time he is now a boat that you can use to sail to different islands. He is now Boatem. That is his name now, and I will keep calling him that. Controlling Boatem is rather straightforward. You just drag towards which direction you want to sail to, and everything else plays out smoothly. It can be a bit finicky. It does feel meant for mobile devices, but it works, and it adds an interesting aspect to the gameplay. Altogether, there are 10 chapters, which I have thoughts on. The price for Monument Valley 3 is double the price of the first two games. I finished my playthrough in about 2 hours. As much as I love these games, none of them can justify this price. I'm glad there's more content down the line, which can make the price a bit more sensible, but it's still too much to ask. Nevertheless, if you are a fan of these games, I doubt you'll be disappointed with this new entry. It's the same Monument Valley we know and love, only with a fresh coat of paint, some stunning levels, and Boatum. He's the real MVP. Opening Monument Valley 3 for the first time felt like a homecoming in a weird way. These games are some of my favourites that I reviewed on this channel, and their connection to my channel is something that remains a constant to me. I have fond memories both playing and reviewing them, and I've been excited to do so for this one. I'm really glad to report that the magic hasn't withered away. These are some seriously talented developers who deserve more recognition. They have taken what they've learnt with the first 2 games and built something that feels even more refined, more enchanting, and more beautiful. Each level is a living, breathing painting, exemplified by their soundscapes and simple, yet extremely effective presentation. This new world is just as mystical as the worlds that came before it. An easier to digest story might give it a stronger edge, and while it isn't the most difficult game in the world, it is still filled with challenging and memorable moments. My only points for concern are its price tag and the potential risk of players wanting more from it than just cozy vibes. Nevertheless, go in with an open mind, and you are in for a remarkable ride. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Like I said before, check out my reviews for the other Monument Valley games if you want to see more of this series. Subscribe if you want to see more reviews for indie games, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.